Each month, I stand at the threshold, holding the door open to you, the witch, the seeker, the mystic, who is looking to understand their path a little bit better and to understand their magic. Twice monthly, I offer classes to our community. In our Seekers Alley, I offer a free class to everyone where we discuss a very specific esoteric topic. The second class of each month is reserved for our inner circle, and this is where we go deep. This is where we take theory and we put it to action, where we can see how our magic flows out into the world to create the change we most desire. And when you support the Rebel Mystic Coven, you are directly supporting this podcast and the Unbound Priestess podcast, showing me that all the effort that goes into producing each and every episode is worth it and that you love what we produce. I look forward to seeing you in the Coven. I hope you will join me soon. Check the link in the show notes for more information or visit leandrawitchwood.com to join the Coven.
This time in the Magick Kitchen, we are joined again by Laura Tempest Zakroff.
I'm Leandra Witchwood.
And I'm Elyse Wells.
And welcome to the Magick Kitchen Podcast, where we talk about magic, kitchen witchcraft, herbs,
and everything in between. Laura Tempest Zakroff is a professional artist, author, performer, and modern traditional witch based in New England. Laura is the author of several best-selling Llewellyn books, including Weave the Liminal, Sigil Witchery, Visual Alchemy, and Anatomy of the Witch, as well as the artist and author of the Sigil Witchery Oracle, Anatomy of a Witch Oracle, the Liminal Spirits Oracle, and now also the Wisdom of the Witch's Ally. You did the art for this incredible deck with Dodie Graham McKay. And your newest book is what we're going to talk about today, Tarot by Tempest. And I'm also going to shout out, because it's very timely, the new Aradia, A Witch's Handbook to Magical Resistance. You have 3 in this series. So there's the Witch's Handbook, the Gorgon's Guide to Magical Resistance, and then Serpents of Circe, A Manual to Magical Resilience from Revelor Press, which is your press. And I'm going to shamelessly plug, I'm in that one. I'm in the Serpents of Circe one with a piece on working with land spirits as non-binary spirits for protection and resistance magic. It is a really good resource for this moment that we are in. So we'll put all your links in the bio for people, and thank you for being here.
Yay, thank you. Oh, one small note, Revelor Press is Jen Zart's press. Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. I didn't know that.
Yes. Many, many very, very cool esoteric titles. Jen is just a wonderful literary demon who can just, like, hey, well, can we get this book out in 2 months? And she's like, sure, let's do it.
That's incredible. That's the kind of like when people talk about trickster energy is bad, I'm like, no, it's also just like the energy of like, this is chaos, let's go. Like, yes. It's so good. Like, you do want some of that in your life.
Yeah. Like, buckle up. We need to get this out now. And that's how Jen works.
So I want to start with your newest book, Tarot by Tempest, which will be available by the time this episode drops. And there's a lot of books on tarot, but yours is different and better in a lot of ways than some of the very, very old ones. Tell us why you were like, I need to write this. I need to write another tarot book. It must exist.
I had the same opinion, like there's so many tarot books out there, but I've been teaching tarot since the early O's, and when I started teaching virtually during the pandemic, it was basically just going through like, this is how I teach the tarot, and people are like, this is mind-blowing, and I'm like, what? It's just how I do it. So I kind of had like missed the fact that like my approach was very different than a lot of folks, and was much easier for people to learn and embody it in new ways. So when I woke up one morning and was like, duh, perhaps I should write a book on my approach, and put that out into the world and see. And it was supposed to be tarot by numbers. That was the initial title, because you're like paint by numbers, but tarot by numbers, because I'm such a dork. And the editor, the team, they read this and they're like, this is basically Weave the Liminal for tarot. So we're going to call it Tarot by Tempest. There you go. I'm like, okay.
That's funny. I'm surprised they didn't go with like liminal tarot or something. I don't know. There was more to work with there. No, I like Tarot by Tempest. I'm a sucker for, I guess it's not alliteration when it's consonants, right? It's consonants.
Right, it's close though, right? And then and if you shorten it, it's TBT. So I feel like Throwback Thursday.
Yeah. It's for the millennials. Little inside joke. And I think, so it's interesting thinking about old tarot books and even just old publishing in the occult world.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's very new that the neurodivergent among us have a voice in this world. And I think that's part of it, because that's how I felt like writing my book about land spirits. This doesn't exist, this framework. I just assumed it did. It wasn't until I was literally writing the book and looking for sources that I realized there wasn't really one that matched what I was doing. And I think it's the same for your book, because even when I was reading it, I was like, nice, this is how I do it. I think about the numbers, and I'm not a numerologist. I'll say that too. I don't think your book is necessarily for hardline numerologists who work with tarot. Yeah, that's a different world, but it is super helpful, and it is how I relate to the tarot. So I resonated big time as a neurospicy myself.
Yay. It's working.
Leandra, I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you a question.
Go ahead, because I don't work with tarot, so this is going to be fun.
Exactly. So as someone who doesn't work with tarot, do you think it could have improved your relationship to relate to it via numbers instead of, because I'm thinking maybe you just had old hat teachers back in the 90s that kind of threw you off.
Sure. Yeah, I definitely had old hat teachers who were very like, this is how it is, the very linear idea of it. And I think it did help, especially the way you lay it out. It's you've broken it out, the snapshot, the musing, the core principles, and that helps, the core principles part of it, because then I have more to relate to on it's a more cohesive way to relate to it, rather than, well, you have to look at this and they're pointed this way, and like this whole the symbolism is important, of course, and the art is important. That's what makes the tarot, right? But if you're someone who can get a bunch of different meanings from one symbol, it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you land on something. What is that meaning? So you're going by intuition anyway. So that's why I lean towards Oracle, because if I'm going to use my intuition anyway, then I'm going to go to Oracle, right? So yeah, I appreciate the way you laid it out. It's very helpful.
Yay,
non-intimidating.
Yay! Yeah, the here folks are like, what's going on? Like the numbers, yeah, like I'm definitely not a numerologist either. And people are like, it's like numerology. I'm like, no, it's not. Like, but also, being a child of the 90s and O's, I'm like, that has a very specific meaning. Right. If you just look at the rhythm of the pattern. So a lot of this it's a combination of art, math, and movement. So those are all things that we can exist in, though I also feel like it's the three scary things. They write that in the book of like, I tackle three things that people hate to deal with. People are afraid of making art. They're afraid of moving their bodies, and they're really afraid of math. Like, here's a sandwich with all of those. It's a Neapolitan. Very, very on brand.
Everything. Well, and part of my studies when I was, growing up as a baby witch was sacred geometry. So there's a little bit of math in there. So math, it's scary, but I feel like this aligns with the sacred geometry more than just numerology, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Well, I think we get math scary because it's not taught well in schools. It said, memorize these things. They're not going to tell you what it really means. You just need to know these formulas. And like, but why? This is where the neurospicy comes in. But why is it sine and cosine? And how does this work? Like, if you explain that, then I can figure it out in space and understand the application. And, we just, our brains just go to, it's going to be calculus or something. Or, it's like, once you understand the rhythm and the pattern, then it's not scary anymore. And it's actually helpful. You're like, oh, and you don't have to do calculus.
And music is math. you know,
Yes.
and we all like music. So I teach the frame drum, but not as a drummer, you know, not as a musician. I've studied with teachers, but I learned like the Glenn Velez, like official kind of system of the frame drum, the hand frame drum, but I use it totally differently and I teach it totally differently as an intuitive practice. And so often that is the thing. People come into that class. It's either that or the moving the body, because you kind of do both with the frame drum. You can't really do that without moving. And they're like, oh, I'm just not flexible. Oh, I'm not good at that. And I'm like, and sometimes it helps to be like, no, it's just math. Other times that makes it so much worse. So it's interesting. And I always come back to the witch's pyramid: to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. And I think that's the dare part here is math is scary. Ew. Well, okay, but I dare you. I dare you to just approach it. Yeah, poke it.
My little finger. This is where the finger gets the work out. Like a poke.
Yeah.
Why are witches' fingers so sore? Because we're poking people all the time.
So I would like to ask you, a lot of people focus on the major arcana. You know, they focus on learning them very well. And then they see the minor arcana as like something they can figure out later. What are your thoughts on the minor arcana and their importance as a tarot reader?
The minor arcana are the little mysteries, and our life is made up of the little mysteries. The things that we're often pulling about are these day-to-day type of things, and that's what the minor arcana excels at. The major arcana is like the big guidelines, like when you're driving on a highway and you know you want to get to Boston, like the Boston area. They'll get you there. This 95 will get you to Boston. But if you need to get to Salem or Braintree or somewhere else, like, you're going to need to take smaller roads to get to that precise location and to end up where you need to go. So it's this relationship between the larger guidance and the big mystery and delving into those smaller parts. And they do relate back and forth. The numbers bring them together. So I think I think people get scared of them because there's so many of them. And as you mentioned earlier, the old books, right? You do a really, I'm gonna say old books. And like I reference one of Eden Gray's books, which is in many ways really, really wonderful. But when you get down to the minor arcanas and it says this card represents a fair, excuse me, a fair-skinned, light-haired woman with blue eyes, and like, this is no. Like, no, there's gender essentialism in here. There's probably racism in here. There's like a whole bunch of stuff that's not really included into the reading. Like, and so you get like, oh, I have to look for this kind of person when this shows up. It's like, no, there's still ideas. There's a bigger concept. So with the numbers, the shapes, and the rhythms, you can pull back and get actually more precise without this old junk. Sorry, I'm gonna piss off so many people.
No, not our listeners. And
not here.
No. And I think too, like, I sometimes will do a reading for someone and I'll get a knight card. And because a lot of old books will tell you that the court cards have to be people. It's a person in your life. And so I'll sometimes draw somebody a knight or a queen, and they're like, oh, but there's really no women in my life who. And I'm like, that doesn't matter. Like, this is what's actually coming through. And I think that's where, like, I think about a lot of the women and people who wrote the older books on tarot. They probably were only ever working with Rider-Waite. They never had the luxury of decks like my favorite deck, the Wildwood Tarot. It's completely different. Five of Cups is ecstasy. That's wild. But it's the ecstasy that comes from releasing grief and accepting it and surrendering to it.
Cycle.
Yeah. So it gives me chills. I love that deck so much. So I think that's the thing with tarot is it's evolved as a practice significantly from when it was invented. And just like our pagan practices do, our polytheism, our witchcraft, it's totally different than what it was even a generation ago.
Definitely. And I think also it's, one of the things I discovered when I was doing the research for this, I have the commemorative edition of the Pamela Coleman Smith Wiser cool hard box, and it comes with all this sort of things. And you're looking at Arthur Waite's text and you're looking at her work and you're like, they were not in the same room, and it shows. And I think he was sort of like, no, my text is fine. It's like, and we still see that a lot where, I feel like, hi, I generally write the book and make the art, so it's all in the same factory. being me. But there's like often a lot of disconnect where people are just like, this is what it's supposed to mean. And there's no tapping into the art and the possibilities that are there going back and forth. And like with the Witch's Ally, the Oracle, like I did the art, and Dodie did the words, but like we're going back and forth and like, what does this mean and which direction should it be and what kind of whale are we doing? So that it gives a cohesive message that the words and the art come together. And I think so many people just be like, I have to flip to this little white book and tell me what it means. And like, it has nothing to do with what you see, which makes it even more confusing.
Yeah.
Rant. Soapbox.
Yes.
No, that's the soapbox we're here for. Let's talk about this beautiful deck, actually, because I was sharing with you before we pressed record, but I have been reading, I do free lives every Wednesday online, and I pick a different deck, usually every week. Sometimes we stick with a deck for a little while. Some of them are seasonal. But the Witch's Ally Oracle has been really like drawing us. It's been super effective in my private work as well. And so today I kind of was explaining, when I did my readings this morning with everybody, I was kind of explaining that it really does matter who creates the deck and who, like, if it's one person or two or however many, who are they? What is their relationship to the material and their relationship to each other? So I feel like Dodie Graham McKay, who did the book for this, she is a legend when it comes to earth magic. Her book, Earth Magic, is fantastic. She's so connected, so guided. I love her practice. And I know you a little bit more personally, and I would say the same. And so I was telling them that, and I was like, these are both people that are incredibly connected to the earth, and it comes through in every card. And I love the like Easter egg that my brain knows, which is like, you did the cover art for Dodie's book, which is the back of these cards. And her book, we had her on the show to talk about it. Witch's Ally is about working with familiars, familiar spirits, familiar animals. And it is a fantastic guide as well. So anyway, all that to say, it just all comes together to be a companion on your magical journey. And I think that's the other thing, especially in the commodification days of like I have publishers that send me a bunch of decks. Before that, I had 2 decks. I had one tarot deck, the Wildwood Tarot. That's my baby. She's right there on my altar. I read her every day for myself. And then I just had one other deck that it didn't even resonate. I just had it and I bought it, so I kept it. Now that I get decks sent to me, I learn all kinds of things about decks. But it is really important, I think, to build a relationship with our decks and really only have the ones in our lives that want to be with us. Like our tools, they're companions on the journey.
Yes. So I meet weekly with my like Patreon folks. So last night I was like, we're going to talk about oracles because I spent all day packing pre-orders. And the thing is, like, people are like, here's my stack. I'm like, here's the stack that I brought in from the other room, because I get sent I get sent a lot of decks too. But I'm also collecting friends' art. So there's kind of the both happens. And it's like, it's sort of a shame that I have my primary tarot deck, and of course I have the oracles that I've made that it's a good conversation to have with that. But I don't use as many decks, and so we're kind of threw out the idea of like February Oracle, because I love making new words, is like maybe this month coming up that we should like take out those decks that we don't use and pull a card from it each day, and or work with it a week, depending how many decks you have. Now like, no, not everybody has a room full of decks in the other room. But if, like, you have several and you're just not playing with them, it's like, give it that time and see, is it worth the relationship? And if not, maybe it does need to go off on a journey to someone else.
Breathe in with me. Hold. Now release. One more time. Breathe in. Hold and release. Resets like this are essential for our nervous system, for our stress levels, bringing us back to a foundation where we can think clearly, where we have more energy. And this is why I created the Witches Reset. This is a 5-day audio program where I guide you through essential practices to bring you back to your baseline so you can think clearly and build something meaningful. To learn more, check out the link in the show notes or visit my website, leandrawitchwood.com, and I look forward to seeing you in the program. For now, let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, and I think people are sometimes we get so attached to our magical tools, especially if we've invested in them. But it is a powerful act of your spiritual practice to either gift your deck to somebody else. In fact, that used to be, I'm sure you remember this, that used to be the thing. You can't buy yourself a tarot deck. It can't work. It must be gifted to you. And this was back when tarot decks were like really kind of expensive, and like that wasn't really going to happen. So that's not true, people. You could definitely go buy your own decks. But it is special, like to be able to gift a deck to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I have a stack that I'm collecting to gift because I don't use them. Yeah, just like what you're talking about, like go through them, and there's nothing wrong with that. Even if it's been used, you can still gift it.
Yeah, most likely you've only flipped through it a few times, and as long as it's hasn't been chewed on by a cat, dog, child, and I started up doing this weekly tarot team up, not weekly, it's monthly tarot team up. And like eventually we're gonna get to the point where we're just like, all right, everybody bring your extra decks in and we're gonna do a tarot swap. Like, so like that's something you can do in your community, or it can happen at a festival where that's a great thing if you're going to, like I think Paganicon, it's happened there, and I know the tarot conferences it happens. Like here we are in a room, and they throw the decks on the floor respectfully, and everybody's just like in the mess, and and like you come home, like you've lightened your load, but you've also come home with new friends. Like that's a magical act in itself too, and it's a lot of fun, and might see decks that you normally wouldn't see. Especially most shops can't have every single deck that they have as a sample deck for you to look at. And while YouTube has so many flip throughs where you probably could find some of those older decks aren't going to be on there, or maybe it's an independent deck. Who knows? Like it's a journey. It's fun.
Yeah. What's a deep what's like your spiciest like opinion on tarot?
The one that I fear is going to get me burned at the stake one day.
I mean, sure, we can edit it out if it's too spicy.
No, I write about it in the book, is that I believe that swords are fire and wands are air. Yeah.
I completely agree.
Please, let's talk about that.
I have to remind myself every freaking time that it's not that way.
Yeah, because even when I was learning tarot, that was one of the things that was a hang up that I couldn't get over. I'm like, why is it like, why? When it doesn't, yeah. Please talk about that.
Yes. So the first thing is understanding that all of the elements exist in all of the cards. Like,
yeah.
And I've had people argue me like, well, there's water in this card. And I'm like, so that's showing up over here. It means a lot of different things. So, and I believe this goes back to especially the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, because you can look at those cards and see that the swords, there is volcanic action, there is smoke, right? There are fiery elements in there. And I go at it very practical. Like you can go to connecting to witchcraft as a sword being fire, and there's the whole discussion, which I think I cover a bit in the book. But when you look at it as tools, if we're using these as tools, right? All right, cups are cups are water and emotion, right? It holds what? Sorry, water. So Philly this morning. It holds some water.
Yeah, there's some water ice in there.
It's good for water ice. It's great. It's little flavor. And pentacles, earth, coins. Like, yeah, we get that. Like those are the easy ones. But you think about wands. And they really, to me, when you look at the illustrations, are all about conversations and ideas, right? Like the 5 of Wands is somebody's wrong on the internet. Like you just like see, it's a classic conversation. Like I'm carrying too much weight. The 9 of Wands, right? I gotta take these ideas somewhere, but they're not so action oriented, right? They're the ideas getting to that spot. And with swords, right, just like with fire, is once you have completed that action, it is done. Once you have burned something, it has been changed in its state. Once you have cut something with a sword, it does not necessarily go back together unless it's a magical creature, or like slime mold.
Right.
What I mean?
It can heal itself.
Yeah, back together. It's a D&D deck. Everything is open.
Yes, yes. There's a magical healing spell, and there you are, back together.
Yeah. And then if you look at the swords, like to get to the Ten of Swords, the Ten of Swords says there's nothing left for you to do. It's not even like you can't even think about it anymore. There's nothing you can do about the situation. It has reached its end. That's it. Kaput.
Well, okay. So, and I think of it this way. So, being a vitalist herbalist, like I look at the way I identify what a plant is good for, what you're going to use it for, is how it grows. So, a tree, a wand is cut from a branch. What does the branch point to? The sky. Where is it pointed at? Where is it growing? In the sky. Air. That's my association with it. Mm-hmm. So when I'm blending teas in the tea house, that's when I'm looking at, okay, do I need air energy? Do I need something that's going to move things around? Do I need something that's opening communication to the body and the mind and the spirit? But when I'm looking at fire, that is going to be something that cuts. It's going to be something that's forged in fire, like a sword. A sword is forged in fire.
Exactly.
You can't make the sword without the fire. So that was where I would always get stuck, because they're both going to move energy. They're both movement. Yep. One's hot, one's cool, one's dry, one's moist or could be moist. I always got stuck. So that I appreciate that part, because it did make sense to me. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then
my brain is not off.
Yeah. And like our tradition of witchcraft, my tradition of witchcraft is the eclectic fairy tradition, and we go back to like fairy tradition. And so we've always been taught that wands are your first tool. They're associated with air, new beginnings, communication. Exactly. Like it just has never resonated. And I agree. I think it just comes from this guy, Arthur Waite, who's just kind of messing around. Like he wasn't really taking it, right? Like his perspective on making this deck was, I think, very different than the artist, Pamela Coleman Smith.
Yeah, there's some discussion about like double blind and such, but I really think that our more modern mix-up, there we go, I'm going to upset a whole other group of people. So I think when you look at the Rider-Waite-Smith, it makes sense that the elements are going to be swords of fire, air for wands, blah, blah, blah. But if you look at the Thoth deck, it's very fiery for the wands. Like you get these, very deliberate color uses in there, and it's a beautiful deck. And I feel like this is possible. There could be something else that goes before this, but I feel like the main culprit, and I don't mean this in the bad way, but this is the point of where things connect, is the Robin Wood Tarot. Because it was the first really pretty pagan tarot that was available. And I think Robin was taking inspiration from the Thoth deck and the Rider-Waite-Smith deck. And it got into there where those cards went from being, you could interpret the elements to either way, to being like, we're making these wands very fiery. And then you had everybody else whose their first deck was the Robin Wood deck, and they're making a tarot deck. So their wands are now fire. And this is like, it's the point where the telephone game started. I think it's there.
Oh, we need someone to do a dissertation on this. I want to read this.
That's a really good point.
I just don't have time to do the research. That's fascinating.
Yeah. And I think in a lot of practices, we forget that there are different versions of the same concept, but we land like, oh, it's this, it has to be this very, the blinders are on linear thinking. And I don't think the tarot is meant to be that, but that's how I was taught it was supposed to be. And it never felt right to me.
Oh,
so yeah, I think that was pointless.
I was like, this is the right way now. But yeah, again, like the very nervous place, like, oh, of course, yeah, swords, cut, change, action, boom. And they're all intertwined though. Like the emotions are still going to show up in your thoughts, and emotions are still going to show up in your actions. And this is where the Minor Arcana can be really helpful, as we can see the blending of those. But to think that, health and wealth only happens in the Pentacles, meanwhile you're stressed out at the Nine of Swords, like that is also going to impact your health. So, it's just more of a guide. They're guidelines, right? If you look at elemental as guidelines in how things are moving in the world, then you can see that ideas and air and actions and fire and such. And then I think it really aligns well too with what I know about the zodiac signs, and it's always been consistent that those swords are going to be the Aries and the Sages and the other fires. Oh my God, it's fine,
Leo.
totally fine. Thank you.
Yes,
of course.
My brain is like also like.
Y'all, it's still my first cup of tea here.
Yeah.
I'm normally
It's so
like,
early in the morning. We are all night. Well, actually, Leandra's not a night person, but I think we're both creatures of the evening. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine arriving somewhere built to hold you. Stone paths leading to hidden caves of the goddess. Salt water clearing away old patterns. Long tables of food and friendship shared beside a sunset. Temples of the old gods. Alive in and around you. You are invited to join me in Greece on an in-person pilgrimage through ancient temples and landscapes where women once gathered to grieve, rest, and remember themselves. We travel to the Temple of Artemis, Hecate's cave at Elyse. We swim inside a temple of Hera and enter a hidden goddess cave and sacred sites to Aphrodite and Medusa. Our days are shaped by land, water, and ritual. Our nights are spent at a private villa with expansive views, a private pool, deep rest, and exceptional food prepared with care. This retreat is for women and non-binary seekers carrying exhaustion, grief, or a long history of holding it together. Join us at ElyseWells.com/femininewound, where spots still remain. The land can hold it. Come to Greece and answer that call to heal.
I don't know. This week I've been staying up pretty late, so I'm tired.
What's late for you? I have to know.
Late? Well, okay, the past couple nights has been like midnight.
Okay, that's pretty late.
Yeah. That's out of my norm though. Yeah.
That is super out of your norm.
Yeah.
Yeah, when
That's
I
why
lived
you don't
in
get on
Greece,
phone calls with people at like 10 o'clock at night, you know?
Yeah. Well, it was funny because when we started the podcast, I was still living in Baltimore. Then when I moved to Greece, I was on an 8-hour ahead, 7-hour ahead, or 8-hour difference. But Leandra and I were on the same schedule because she gets up so early and I'm such a night owl.
That's great.
It made it so easy. Everyone was like, "How are you managing with the time difference?" I'm like, actually, it's easier than ever.
That's fine.
So funny. So I wanted to ask you about in your Witch's Ally Oracle, your art never fails to impress me. Like, I love your art style so much. And last time you were on, I think we talked a good bit about sigil witchery, which is on the top. Weave the Liminal and sigil witchery are both in my reading list for every class I teach because they're so good and important. And sigils were kind of also like tarot for a lot of people, including myself. I thought sigils were totally not for me until I found your work because I was used to the Osmond Spare, like kind of boring and linear linear. And I just was like, no. But your sigil work is so incredible. I also want to shout out that you created sigils that we can use for resistance right now. So finding
Yes.
Tempest's Instagram is a move right now for sure to do that and find those sigils and use them. But you also created sigils for each little critter on these cards. I love that. How did you know? How did that idea come about? And why was it important for you to put sigils on each card?
Something that Dodie and I came up with, I can't, because we're just like become the same brain. When we're working, I'm like, was it my idea? Was it Dodie's idea? Who knows? But suddenly we're like, well, you should do this thing. And it was one of the early ideas, but it was the last things in the application because I wanted to create the art in its own world in itself and then come back and be like, oh, if this card has like a little decorative border, there could be a little circle in the thing. Clearly they did not go with a decorative border or keywords or any of that for that. So it was like after all of the cards are completed, then I sat down with the paintings and sort of, I'd say channeled, but like, yeah, communed with the energy of each animal. And, you know, they are very representative,
Representative. We got it. That's perfect.
Thank you.
We got it. We understand.
Words are so hard. Why are words so
They
hard?
are hard. Aw.
And it's always authors. We're always like, I can't find the word right now. And it's like, isn't that your job?
Like, it's my job. It's my job.
Yeah.
To write them down, not speak them.
Right. This is the problem. My mouth is the problem. Should be a ribbon. That's gonna be a convention ribbon. My mouth, it's the problem.
My mouth is the problem.
Nevertheless, she persisted, and that was my mouth. I'm so sorry about it.
That's how it works. So yes, to create these sigils that, you know, they have the spirit of the animal, and so in many ways, like, you're going to see like a little tail or the whiskers or the shell, depending on what it is. That's still very abstract and it's still very simple, so it's easy for folks to draw. And I think, like, someone was like, these sigils should be more secretive and strange, and I'm like, that's not the point. It's not the point. It's not the point of all sigils, and it's definitely not the point of these in this deck to have shorthand. Basically, it's shorthand for that animal, and to play with those shapes and those ideas and to connect to that spirit with, you know, whether you're going to take that on the road, that you don't, you know, take the card out, you know, for if you're going to travel. And there's so many different options. So that was a really fun way of tapping into that. And it does move around on the card depending on how visible it needs to be. So, you know, for some people are like, it's not in a consistent place. And I was like, because when I create art, I am anything but consistent.
Yeah.
That's okay.
Well, and
it's okay.
I like that it gives another way to use the deck, and you do put so much, like I wish this was visual right now, but Dragonfly has the arrow pointing towards its transformation. Like, it tells you what it does, as well as looking like a dragonfly. And Fox, I felt like this is like one of the more, if you wanted a secretive looking sigil, it's this one.
Yep.
But that fits Fox because he's clever and sneaky and figuring it out.
And he gets like his little cheeks, like you get a little taste of the little cheeks, but he's in a
yeah, he's like peeking out from the hedge, you know. I just love it. And I also loved the way you use spirals in almost every card, and the kind of Strovelos labyrinth that you have in Mouse. So every time I've read, something else jumps out. Even though on the surface these might look simple as cards, there's a lot going on, like literally in the grasses or in the background, so I get a bit of a different message when it's the right message for that reading each time, which is special.
Excellent. Again, the plan is working.
Yeah. And it felt that way, like the one mind between you and Dodie, it felt that way in this deck. Like, and I think you can always feel that. There's a few other decks I can look at over there, and I'm like, yeah, you can feel that connection between creators.
I don't think there was a single image that after I came up with it, Dodie was like, It's just like, you did it! I'm like, yay! This is so easy. It's a really fun thing too, where you know, to kind of step back into, you know, I've done design professionally for years, and, you know, having been self-employed now for a long time, it's like, oh, working with somebody else, how's this going to go? I mean, I've co-written books, right? But like with Jason and I, we wrote our own chapters, so they just sort of come together, right? Not the same way as like actively collaborating, and being able to like see what Dodie wrote and kind of delve into it, then ask a few questions, and then create the image. Just be like, I see it, like it's there. Here's my challenge. It was very exciting versus like, oh, I've got to draw, you know, a badger that has 3 whiskers, and you know, like there was an openness to it that made it more playful, and I think therefore more successful than some people who like try to control every aspect of creation.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, this is for spiritual work. So if we rigidify the process, it's not gonna, it's gonna be a false start.
Yeah, gotta have some freedom, gotta have some play. That's where the magic comes. Yeah.
Tempest, thank you for joining us today here in the Magick Kitchen. Always a pleasure. Tell people where they can find your books and your decks, but also if you have anything coming up in the spring or summer that you would like to tell everybody about.
Well, we're depending on where you are in the world. If you're in the US, you can, if you'd like to get signed copies, you can get things directly from me, lauratempestzakroff.com. Otherwise, most of my work is published by Llewellyn, so it is available worldwide. And I highly recommend you support your favorite local bookstore or witchy shop. They can definitely order and get it from you, and that way you can support community. And things that are coming up in the summer, I know I'll be at Mystic South in Atlanta in July, and planning to be at Temple Fest in the end of the summer. And there's probably a few more things going in between. So just you check out my website, it will have there. If you sign up for my newsletter, I'll send you an annoying email once a month that tells you where I'm going to be.
All right.
And we'll see you at Temple Fest.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll never miss Temple Fest. That was the coolest, best conference ever.
They are. It is the
Very
coolest
excited.
conference. Coolest.
I'm bringing a lot of Coven members. Yeah. Leandra's like, we're there.
Not really.
Like, sign up for that. They're like, you're going to present something. I was like, I'll worry about that later.
Yeah. There you go. Yep.
Well, thank you again for being here. This was wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Good to see you.
Yeah, get to see it. I feel like see you online and in person. It's just a wonderful little blessing. So glad to be here.
Yeah. Merry meet,
merry part, and merry meet again.
Thank you for joining us on the Magick Kitchen Podcast. Please visit my website, leandrawitchwood.com, for news, information, and more episodes.
I'm Elyse Wells. You can learn more about my current offerings and my upcoming retreats to Greece at ElyseWells.com. That's ELYSEWELLES.com. Did you know you can get a free reading from me every single Wednesday at 10 a.m.? Join me in my live devotional space for Sacred Wild Wednesdays. We gather live on a webinar for free readings with oracle texts and tarot decks, magical musings on the moment, and some grounded spiritual guidance rooted in land. If you're craving a pause, a recalibration, and some community, you are so warmly invited to join us. Visit ElyseWells.com/sacredwildwednesdays to register and get the link straight to your inbox every Wednesday.